Yo, what's going on guys? Cultimush back at it with another video, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the recently revealed Mirror's Edge Catalyst system requirements. Mirror's Edge Catalyst is a game that I'm very excited for. I love the Mirror's Edge game that was released back in 2008. No, it wasn't a perfect game, but it was such a unique game and such a breath of fresh air compared to every other game we were getting at that time that I just really enjoyed that game. It didn't perform all that well as far as sales go, so we were never sure if we were ever going to get a follow-up, but here it is. It is coming out in May. And the Mirror's Edge Catalyst system requirements have been revealed, so I thought let's go over them. So starting things off with the minimum CPU requirements, you're looking at an Intel Core i3-3250 or an AMD FX-6350. They also have a note that Mirror's Edge Catalyst requires at least 4 logical cores to run, so if you do have a dual-core Intel Pentium GPU, you're probably going to be out of luck with this game. But at this point, if you're trying to play a newer game like Mirror's Edge Catalyst, you probably have something more up-to-date. And you'll be fine with an i3 or an FX-6350, which are both very cheap CPUs. Recommended CPU requirements is an Intel Core i7-3770 at 3.4 GHz or an AMD FX-8350 at 4.0 GHz. I've seen a lot of games recently recommend the i7-3770 along with the FX-8350. For those of you guys with an overclocked i5, I think you'll be just fine. Even with a stock clocked i5, the majority of those games that do recommend an i7 seem to work just fine. So I wouldn't really think, oh my god, I need to get an i7 if I want to play Mirror's Edge Catalyst. That won't be the case at all. But if you do have an i7, I'm sure you'll get a slight performance bump. Minimum RAM requirement is 6GB of RAM, nothing too surprising there. However, recommended RAM requirement goes all the way up to 16GB of RAM. Again, they list 16GB, but Star Wars Battlefront, another game that was running on the Frostbite engine, also recommended 16GB, and I have 8GB of RAM, and I was able to run that game just fine, so I think those of you with 8GB of RAM, you'll also be fine. And minimum RAM requirement being 6GB is kind of cool, I guess. A lot of games these days just have minimum and recommended RAM requirement being 8GB. And at this point, I think most of you guys have 8GB of RAM, and I see 8GB being just enough for Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Moving on to GPU requirement, which is what you guys care about the most, and this is very, very weird. So for minimum GPU requirements, it's listed as an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 650 Ti or an AMD Radeon R9 270X. Now the 650 Ti is somewhat weaker than the R9 270X, so it's odd how the NVIDIA GPU is listed lower and the AMD GPU is listed of a higher GPU, but it gets even weirder when you take a look at the recommended GPU requirement. For recommended GPU requirements, they have it listed as an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 974GB or an AMD R9 280X 3GB. The GTX 970 is considerably more powerful than the R9 280X. So I have no idea what's going on here. For minimum GPU requirements, the NVIDIA GPU is less powerful than the AMD GPU, and then for recommended GPU, the NVIDIA GPU is considerably more powerful than the AMD GPU. So I have no idea what's going on here. This just seems like a weird mess up by EA, because in all honesty, these GPU requirements make no sense at all. I could understand if this is a game that's more optimized for NVIDIA GPUs, and both the minimum and recommended NVIDIA GPUs are less powerful than the AMD GPUs, but in this case it goes one way for the minimum and the other way for the recommended, so this makes absolutely no sense at all. Hopefully we'll get a bit of clarification on this as we head towards the release. So that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. As always, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you disliked, obviously hit the dislike button. And if you have a request for a future video, also leave that in the comment section down below. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.